Hello everyone! Today I am going to talk about the ENTJ personality type. Let's first describe them in a few words. So, they are goal-driven and usually pretty ambitious people. They are decisive. They love to be the one who decides what happens, to be in control. Yeah, they're also inventive. They're people who are very interested in innovation, new ideas, coming up with new solutions to problems, and kind of being original in that way and creative in that way. They are also assertive. They can like to have a say in how things should be done. So they are visionary in terms of they are good at making long-term plans. They are really good at understanding concepts and theories, creating new theories, and also predicting if things are going to work out in the future or not, and seeing things coming. Lastly, they are strategic. They're just good at strategizing, they're good at knowing exactly how to reach their goals as well, finding solutions. They're good problem solvers. They often gravitate towards leadership. Of course, they don't have to be leaders, but it's a thing that they might like. And it's like they love organizing, like all the EJs. They just love creating a sort of structure in their lives. They are these people who are very driven by and interested in logical understanding from a very objective perspective. Objective rather than personal. So they want to look at, does something work? How can I make things work in the best way possible? What's the most logical solution to a problem? So that means they are going to want to create a certain structure in the external world around them, like all the EJs kind of want to do. But this structure is based on what makes the most sense to do. What is the most logical thing to do? How can I make things work in the most effective and efficient way possible? This means that they are usually good at like managing things, like managing a company, leading a team, or stuff like that. Or even just managing their own life in order to be successful in whatever they want to be successful at. So, one key of this type is how goal driven they are and how they will just really focus on how can I achieve my goals. So, they're very like future focused and trying to figure out what's the best way to get there and strategizing. They have great reasoning skills because there's this thing, they have this quality together with the ESTJs where they see logic very easily. They, like, whenever they're listening to someone, it's like they instantly kind of check, is what this person is saying, like, does it make logical sense? Is it logically consistent? Is there anything they're saying that doesn't make sense? This is why they have this great reasoning skills, but they're usually only able to use these skills whenever they are being extroverted, so whenever they are focused on the world around them, they have these reasoning skills. So they're good at deciding, like, in the moment, what's the most effective thing to do. They're also just good at analyzing things in general, because the thing they see instantly and focus on naturally is logic. That's why they are really good at understanding how systems work, and how to optimize them and that kind of stuff. And make them also have this technical side to them where they're likely good at understanding this technical stuff. But there's one side to them where, like I said earlier, they're also very interested in theories. So whenever they're going to try to understand the technical side of things, it's usually not going to be about, for example, fixing physical things. It's going to be about theoretical problems and solving those problems. Then, for example, they're not likely to be very interested in like working with their hands a lot. They are much more interested in theorizing and then also finding a way to execute these theories, applying these theories they do want to apply them, but they don't necessarily have to be the one who is actually doing a lot of like practical work. They're not like the most practical people. It's just that they like to be the one with a plan, the one who's managing things and making sure that things do get put into action in some way. And they also don't mind just being the one who is making sure that other people are going to do that. So, what I said about innovation, they're very interested in coming up with new ideas, things that haven't been done before. Like I said, finding new solutions to problems and better solutions to problems maybe than exist at this time. They're often interested in their career and they're often successful with that because they are naturally just very interested in achieving things and accomplishing things. So yeah, in terms of jobs, leadership positions, management, anything technical, but also with the theoretical side, like science, for example, but then in a position where they can also influence things, you know. What is, I can literally can't read this, what I wrote down. Theory. I wrote theory with 2 H's. One other thing about them is that they can be pretty people oriented, as in group oriented, but not necessarily in a way where they want to get to know people very well. It's just that they really want to discuss their ideas with people and hear their ideas about what's logical, how to do things, you know. They like to work together with people to find these new solutions because they have this thing where they sometimes can have difficulty trusting themselves and they more easily trust others. But they're always focused on reasoning. But it's like they trust other people's reasoning and they will check, you know, does what they're saying make sense? They will check that and they can see that. But still, they want that validation and they want to kind of make sure that they are sharing their ideas with people to make sure that still what they're doing makes sense because they're very focused on seeing the logic, seeing solutions around them. They're not very focused on themselves. So they don't like to think about things very much on their own. They do like to kind of maybe work on projects on their own sometimes, but they will use information from others as well. They'll be sensitive to what's expected of them in terms of what's the norm, what's the consensus about what makes sense. And they usually won't deviate from it. If, for example, a lot of people say, like, this is the truth, and they have some evidence or data to back it up, then this person will look at the evidence and be like, okay, it seems plausible as far as I can see, so I'm going to trust them for that. And that's something they kind of really want to do. They don't like to be the one who is alone, who's not backed up or trusted by anyone. You know, they don't like that. They are kind of focused on the group in that way. They also have this side where they actually really like to like go out and do things, go to new places, do activities, and kind of be active and engaged with things or people, and very kind of just engaged with the world around them. But they also have to watch out that they don't do this too much because it's not one of their strengths. So if they engage too much with the world around them, it might actually make them really tired. And, you know, whenever they are in this kind of engaging mode where they can actually seem pretty social, you know, with people, at the same time, they will still come across as a very serious person as well because of their dominant function. They're just very focused on analyzing things all the time. They're not like very emotional people at all. The thing is, their emotions do not really control them, do not decide their actions. And this can make them seem very kind of to the point and direct in their language as well. And yeah, so the upside is it can make them seem quite calm, like level-headed. That's what also usually makes them successful in terms of career, because they're not gonna be easily upset about anything. They're just gonna be focused on the work. They're not going to be focused very much on their emotions and what they want. They can easily put that aside and just focus on the work. And the downside is that they may also not always be aware of their emotions because of that. That's a danger that all thinkers have, especially dominant thinkers, such as this type, where their emotions don't really usually bother them or influence them a whole lot. They actually have difficulty reaching them at all, and they're always in danger of repressing them. And this means that they need to put effort into working through their emotions every now and then. For example, maybe they have been doing things that go against their values, go against what's important to them, or something really hurts them, for example, but they didn't even realize it. That kind of stuff can happen to them where they just don't realize it. But their emotions, they're still human. They still have emotions. They're still there. So at some point, they're gonna get them. They're going to kind of get to the surface if it becomes too much. And if they haven't worked through it. Because everyone has to deal with their emotions at some point. Even thinkers. So if they don't do that, they may get these anger outbursts where you have this weird contrast where you will see people who have dominant thinking who can actually become very angry because they are not taking care of their emotions and not working with them. And they seem like these very logical and objective people most of the time, but they will get angry over little things at the same time, But of course, they can avoid this by paying attention to that. And also being more introverted, because if they decide to be alone and also not working on a project, because it's this thing where they can like to work on projects while they're alone. But they should try to be alone, not work on a project, and just think, just reflect and feel, kind of just be focused on your own thoughts and processing things, or do something for which you don't have to be consciously focused on it. Like do a task that you can combine with introspection, with being reflective. But yeah, they have to be introverted for that. It's this thing where their feelings are very personal to them, so it's probably going to work better if they work through them alone than if they work through them together with others. It will also be more easy to access their emotions, because when they are focused on other people, they're usually repressing their emotions at the same time. So it's better to just take a step back, kind of be alone, work through your emotions, and then get back to socializing and working with this renewed understanding of yourself. Also, because they, like I said, they easily see the logic in things, because of these strong reasoning skills in the moment, seeing the logic in things around them, then they may have difficulty with seeing emotional cues, because in that moment they are not focused on emotions. They are not focused on their own emotions. They're also not focused on other people's emotions, because they are scanning their environment for logic. That's what they're looking for. So their brain can filter out emotional cues. So they may be less aware of that unless they have some kind of logical way of seeing that. So it's like, as long as something is a social rule, they'll probably be aware of it and try to follow it. But if it's not like a spoken rule, but more of an unspoken rule, it may be really difficult for them to see that, or feel that. Especially if you have to, for example, respond to other people's emotional expression. This in particular can make them seem a bit distant from people, where they are not trying to connect with people on an emotional level naturally. They also like to mean something in a community, usually, where they really want to provide to people an answer to something or a service. It's funny, like, I met someone once who was an ESTJ. Pretty sure they were an ESTJ. And this person was, I feel like they were like really proud of something that they had kind of figured out and also managed to put it into action and kind of have these results that they managed to actually save a lot of money with. And that's, I feel like a lot of the ENTJs have the same thing. Kind of the drive to like mean something by figuring something out and then putting it into action and getting the results. Yeah, kind of using their inventiveness to help people. Their need for organizing, structure, control, and their focus on logic and reasoning, objective reasoning without emotions, is because of their dominant function, extroverted thinking. Their focus on theories, their goal focus, their future focus, their imagination and creativity, and their need to kind of focus on innovation is because of introverted intuition, their second function. Their third function is extroverted sensing, which is why they do like to engage with the physical world, but they don't do that all the time, you know. Their inferior function, introverted feeling, is the reason why they are not naturally very in touch with their emotions and values and with their own personal reasoning and their own opinion on things. And this is also the reason why their emotions are very personal to them, and they may not want to share them necessarily a lot. Whenever they get into an extroverted thinking, extroverted sensing loop, they can get like be really productive because it makes them focus on, first of all, extroverted thinking, so kind of being efficient and kind of doing what should be done logically. And then extroverted sensing can make them very in the moment and wanting to engage with the physical world. So it may make them want to kind of really stay action oriented and just get things done. It can make them very productive, but also in danger of overworking themselves as well. What's this thing with the extroverted judging function? So for extroverted thinking, they are reasoning in the moment, but they don't understand exactly how they're doing it because they can only do it when they're being extroverted. So they can never, like introverted thinkers, like build a framework and understand exactly like what they're doing, which is why they don't trust their own reasoning very much. It's much easier for them to understand someone else's reasoning than their own. And that's why they're very people focused. They are afraid of letting go of structure in their life. They are these people, they just want everything to be organized, and they are afraid of kind of letting go of that. As long as everything I do makes sense, then things will be fine, right? And this can make them hold on to certain rules too much, kind of rules that they have for themselves to kind of make their life efficient. And there's a danger of being too strict with themselves, of how things should be organized, you know, and that things should stay organized. And there's also a danger of forcing these rules on other people as well, which I also want to add is something that all the EJs can be in danger of doing. Because they are also strict with themselves, they kind of feel like they are also allowed to be strict with other people about these rules, because they feel like, well, I did my research, or I did my reasoning, and this is the most effective way to do something, so why are you not doing it like that, you know? But they have to understand that, of course, not everyone cares that much about being effective. Everyone has their own personal opinion on things as well. But of course, for them, it can be hard to understand because they're repressing their own personal opinion as well. And they should also allow themselves to go like against the rules sometimes and think like focus on their introverted feeling. So it's okay if you accomplish a bit less because in the moment something really matters to you. Yeah, and when they are being reflective and being focused on their introverted feeling, they can also try to discover more about who they are and what they want. Because they're so sensitive to like kind of what's expected of them, that they almost feel an obligation and feel like everyone should do that, when in fact they just have a difficult time trusting themselves, but they should learn to trust their own opinion more and do something because they want it instead of being too dependent on what other people want from them, basically. Yeah, so the idea is they need to go through their emotions and discover how they truly feel about things so that their extroverted thinking can also stay aligned with that. It's important that they don't repress their emotions too much, because if they do, they will completely lose sight of who they are and what they care about. And they may have a vague idea of it, right? But they wouldn't notice if anything changes. You know, they wouldn't notice how they feel in a particular moment about something. If anything changes, they will not notice it unless they check in with their introvert feeling enough. This is about specifically the extroverted thinkers, so the ESTJs and the ENTJs. There's a danger where their goal can become more important to them than their values or the people around them, because they don't pay attention too much to how they feel in the moment and how others feel in the moment as well. This can lead to this thing where they will have, for example, a noble goal, but they end up hurting other people in order to get there. You know, it's this thing where Jung describes, I think he was talking about extroverted thinking as a function, where he was describing that the people the extrovert thinkers who repress their introverted feeling too much, have this idea of the end justifies the means. So it's this thing where, for example, maybe they're working on a plan that's supposed to really help people in the end, you know, but they are pushing their employees around in order to get that plan done in time, and maybe they're not treating them with a lot of respect. Maybe their employees don't like them because of that. They don't see them as a very kind person, and they're kind of like, well, I know my boss doesn't give a damn about me or my family, you know, where from the outside, people will see them as very noble in that case, right? Because they're working on this great goal. But the people who are closer to them might not see them as a very nice person, for example. So, is it worth it, right? That's another danger that can happen when they repress their introvert feeling too much. Lastly, their weakest functions are, like I already implied, both of the feeling functions, so introverted feeling and extroverted feeling, and then also introverted sensing. They may have trouble with their memories, for example, remembering details, and also it's this thing where they're very tolerant of the sensory, like the physical world, and engaging with it, but they cannot be tolerant for example, certain traditions in terms of how things have been done in the past. Yeah, so that was the ENTJ. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye. Where are they? I think they're literally the last type or something. No, they're not. Wait. No, they're first. I just skipped past them.